The sound was like 1,000 out-of-tune horns mixed with the voice of a broken radio, and it was right behind me, deep in the darkness of the forest. I could feel the ground vibrating under my paws, a pulse that crawled up my legs and made my whiskers tremble. It was a sound that didn't belong to nature, a metallic, screeching noise that seemed to rip apart the fabric of the night silence. I was cornered. In front of me stood a barbed wire fence, old and rusted, that looked like it was meant to keep something in, not out. And behind me, something taller and louder than anything I'd ever seen. I turned around, magnifying glass raised, and saw two long, thin shadows stretching through the fog like walking lampposts, but with something much, much worse on top. The fog, thick and cold, seemed to pull away from the creature, as if afraid to touch it. The air grew heavy, and the smell of rusty metal and burnt electricity filled my nose. A scent reminded me of an old car battery. The noise grew louder, a cacophony of sirens screaming, "Danger! Danger! Run!" But Detective Kitty doesn't run. Detective Kitty investigates. I'm a cat after all, and curiosity is my superpower. Well, I murmured, adjusting my slightly crooked felt hat. Looks like the mystery came to me instead of me going to it. What a convenient delivery service. The Sirenhead, for I knew it was him, the legendary monster of Urgan tales, leaned forward. The movement was slow and clumsy, like a tree trying to bow. The two sirens, where its head should have been, began to spin, and I could see the faint moonlight glinting off the metal. I wasn't afraid. Well, maybe a little afraid, but it was the kind of fear that makes your blood rush faster and your mind sharper. The kind of fear a good detective uses as fuel. I crouched down, scanning the ground with my magnifying glass. I was looking for anything. A footprint, a scrap of fabric, anything that could give me a clue about what this creature was and what it wanted. Sirenhead let out a different sound, a long, high-pitched screech, like a train braking hard. I lifted my head. "You're not scaring me, big guy," I said, my little cat voice sounding surprisingly firm. "I've seen scarier things on laundry day." The creature went silent. The siren stopped spinning. The silence that followed was deafening, a vacuum of sound that seemed to suck the air right out of the forest. And then a voice came out of the sirens. It wasn't the broken radio noise from before. It was clear, though very, very loud. Who's there? I can't see anything in the fog." I blinked. Sirenhead was lost? I'm Detective Kitty, the best detective ever to wear a mustache and a hat. And this is the story of how I saved the town of Silent Whispers from Sirenhead, and how I discovered that the greatest mystery of all was what hid behind the noise. My adventure began, like most great adventures, with a map and a mystery. I was in my cozy office, the Feline Investigations Bureau, sipping chamomile tea and reading a fine book on the history of sailors' knots, when the door creaked open with a dramatic click. The office, located in the back of an old bookstore, was quiet, except for the soft purring of my assistant cat, Mr. Fluffy, who was asleep on a pile of old newspapers. The smell of aged paper and ink always calmed me, but the sudden entrance shattered the peace like a stone breaking the surface of a lake. It was Professor Possum, an old friend of mine, a squirrel with thick glasses and a passion for urban legends. He was panting, clutching a crumpled piece of paper so tightly that his little knuckles were white. His fur was standing on end, and his eyes, usually bright and curious, were wide with panic. Kitty, you won't believe this," he squeaked, jumping onto my desk and knocking over my teacup. Luckily, it was empty. I'd already finished it. The cup rolled off and hit the floor with a dull thud, but Professor Possum didn't even notice. He was completely focused on the paper in his hands. "Professor, my dear," I said, brushing imaginary dust from my felt hat, a habit I had whenever I needed to calm down and think clearly. "I believe in everything, as long as there's evidence. What brings you to my humble office in such a state of panic? You look like you've seen a ghost, or worse, an unleashed dog." He handed out the paper. It was a hand-drawn map, scribbled with trees shaped like claws, and a large red stain marked with the words "Absolute Danger" in shaky capital letters. The map was old and yellowed, folded and unfolded too many times to count. "It's the town of Silent Whispers," he whispered, glancing over his shoulder as if Sirenhead himself might be lurking in the hallway. "They say it's been abandoned for years. Ever since that thing showed up, no one dares go near it. The people who did never came back, or came back different." "Ah, yes," Sirenhead, I said, picking up my magnifying glass to examine the map. The glass, a gift from my grandfather, who was also a detective, had an ivory handle and could magnify even the smallest detail. The Sirenhead, the legendary of a tall, slender creature with 2 sirens for a head that haunts forests and emits terrifying sounds. A bedtime story for naughty kittens, isn't it? To keep them from sneaking out at night? It's not a story, kitty, he insisted, his voice jumping an octave. I got this coded message from an old colleague. Rat Trap, he's a skeptic like you. He went there to prove it was all fake. But his message cut off halfway through. The last thing he sent was a sound. A horrible sound like the one you heard at the start of our story. He sent me an audio recording and the noise was indescribable. I stood up, my curiosity sharpened like my claws. Professor Pawson was eccentric but honest. He was a scholar, an expert in folklore, and not easily frightened. If he was scared, then the mystery was real. And a real mystery was like a ball of yarn to a detective cat, utterly irresistible. All right, Professor, get my detective kit ready. We're going to Silent Whispers. Looks like Sirenhead needs a lesson on how to be a good neighbor. And maybe, just maybe, he can help us find our friend Rat Trap. I grabbed my leather case, which held everything a detective could ever need. A rope, a disguise kit, a small oil bottle for jammed locks, and of course, an emergency snack, a bag of fish biscuits. Professor Pawson looked relieved. Oh, thank you, kitty. I knew I could count on you. But be careful, Rat Trap is brave, but he's small, and that town, it has a terrible reputation. Don't worry, Professor, I said, putting on my hat and winking. I'm small too, but I'm smarter than any noisy monster. And I've got a plan. Well, I didn't actually have a plan yet, but confidence is half the battle. And I was a very confident cat. The trip to Silent Whispers was long and filled with silence. Not the comforting kind, but the kind that feels like it's waiting for something. Like an audience before a magic trick. We drove my little detective car, the Feline Mobile, which is really just a red cart with a toy siren on top, but I insist on calling it a mobile, down Crooked Post Road. The engine purred softly, a comforting sound amid the oppressive quiet. The road's name was well earned. The lampposts along the way were all bent, as if they'd tried to run from something and froze mid-motion. They looked like metal giants, hunched over, watching us with their broken bulbs. The trees were even stranger, with branches like bony fingers pointing toward the gray sky, as if warning us to turn back. The foliage was thick and dark, and sunlight barely managed to slip through the canopy. Professor Pawson, I said, peering through the dusty windshield, are you sure this is the right way? It feels like we're driving straight into a badly drawn cartoon where the laws of physics don't apply. Professor Pawson, who was sitting in the passenger seat and trembling slightly, checked the crumpled map. He was wearing a triple seatbelt, just in case. Yes, Rat Trap marked this spot. He said the silence is the worst part, the silence before the sound. He said the town has an aura of forced quiet. I stopped the Feline Mobile by the town's welcome sign. It was rusty and hanging from a single screw, swaying slightly in the breeze that seemed to have just woken up. It read, "Welcome to Silent Whispers. Population unknown." The paint was peeling, and the sign looked like it had been frightened out of its mind. What a warm welcome, I commented, grabbing my detective case. Stay in the car, Professor. Keep the engine running. If you hear anything that sounds like a fire alarm mixed with an opera, hit the gas. And don't forget my emergency snack. But Kitty, what about you? He asked, eyes wide. I'm Detective Kitty, I said, smiling and adjusting my hat. I am the fire alarm opera. I will investigate, and if I'm not back in an hour, call the feline patrol. I stepped out of the car, and the silence swallowed me whole. There were no birds, no wind, not even the sound of tires on the road, only the crunch of the tall, dry grass beneath my paws. The town was a cluster of wooden houses, all with broken windows and half-open doors. It looked like the residents had left in the middle of breakfast, abandoning everything. There was a newspaper on the sidewalk with the headline, "Mystery of the Noise Continues," but the date was smudged and unreadable. I walked up to the first house, a faded blue cabin. The door was open, swinging slightly. Inside, dust covered everything, like a gray blanket. On the kitchen table sat a plate with half-eaten toast and a cup of coffee that now held a cobweb. Time itself seemed to have stopped there. Clue number 1, I murmured, holding up my magnifying glass. The residents left in a hurry, but why? What scared them enough to abandon breakfast? Then a sound, not Sirenhead, but something subtler. A low, static hiss, like a radio trying to tune in to a distant station. It was coming from the forest, in the direction of the town center. The sound was electronic, artificial, completely out of place in the natural silence. I followed the noise carefully. Detective Kitty may be brave, but he's also smart. I moved from shadow to shadow, using my feline stealth to blend in. The hissing led me to a clearing. In the middle stood an old rusty radio tower. tilted as if it were too tired to stand, and beside it, something that made me stop in my tracks. A footprint, a massive one, the size of a truck tire, but with 3 long, thin toes. It was fresh, as if made only moments ago. Well, I said, examining it with my magnifying glass. Looks like our friend Sirenhead doesn't wear shoes, and he's very, very heavy. The hissing grew louder, and then the radio tower began to tremble. I crouched down, covering my ears with my paws, and then the sound from the start of the story, the sound of 1,000 out-of-tune horns mixed with the voice of a broken radio. I looked up, and there he was, Sirenhead. He was impossibly tall, towering over the forest, stretching up toward the gray clouds. His body was thin and lanky like a lamppost, made of dried flesh and bone, with a texture that looked like a mix of rusted metal and old wood. And where a head should have been, 2 enormous sirens were attached to a narrow, flexible neck. The sirens were a faded red, worn by time. The sirens were screaming, not in anger, but in confusion, in despair. The sound was so loud that the leaves fell from the trees, and I could feel the vibration deep in my chest. It was a chaotic blend of noises, a car alarm, an old radio jingle, a baby's cry, and the whistle of a steam train. I hid behind a blackberry bush, fortunately one without thorns, but with a sweet, comforting scent. I could feel the warm, vibrating air from the sirens as if they were about to burst. Sirenhead didn't seem to be looking for me. He was just standing there, turning his siren slowly, as if trying to find the right angle for a very bad rock concert. He looked disoriented, like a tourist lost in a big city. Interesting, I murmured, taking a small notepad and pencil from my case. Sirenhead, height, incalculable, head, 2 sirens, behavior, loud and confused, more like a teenager who just discovered amplifiers than a monster. He's not attacking, he's just broadcasting. I needed more information. I needed to know what he was doing and why he was making so much noise. A good detective never settles for first impressions. Suddenly, Sirenhead stopped spinning. Sirens went silent. A silence even more terrifying than the noise. An unnatural silence, as if the world itself had stopped breathing. Then a voice came out of the sirens. Not human, not monstrous, a radio voice, crackly and distorted. But I could still make out some words. Chest, 1, 2, 3. Are we on air? Can anyone hear me? This is Silent Whispers Radio, broadcasting from wherever I am. I blinked. Was Sirenhead doing a sound check? Was he a walking radio station? I leaned closer, trying to hear better. Hello, City of Silent Whispers. This is an important message. Please tune in to Channel 5 for information about where's my red cable? The voice cut off, and Sirenhead tilted his head, if you could call it that. The sirens started blaring again, but now they sounded more like a moan, a wail of frustration. Looks like he's having transmission issues, I said to myself. He's not a monster. He's a giant, clumsy radio host with wiring problems. I decided it was time for a more direct approach. I stepped out from behind the bush, magnifying glass in hand, and walked toward the giant. "Excuse me, Mr. Sirenhead," I called out, my cat voice sounding like a faint meow against the silence. Sirenhead froze. The sirens turned slowly, pointing directly at me. I swallowed hard. The smell of rusted metal filled the air. Who's there?" The radio voice crackled, sounding surprised. "I can't see anything. The fog's too thick." "I'm Detective Kitty," I said, trying to sound as brave as possible, "and I'm here to solve your noise mystery. And maybe, just maybe, help you find your red cable." Sirenhead stopped for a long moment. Then the sirens emitted a sound that almost resembled a sigh. A detective? A cat? That's unexpected. I thought everyone had run away." "Detectives don't run away, Mr. Sirenhead. Detectives investigate. And I have a theory. You're not a monster. You're a community alert system with a wiring problem. Am I right?" Sirenhead leaned down, and I could see the base of his body. There were cables and wires everywhere, some hanging, some snapped. It was a wiring disaster. "Yes," he crackled, "I am the community alert system, and I have a problem, a big noise problem." Sirenhead looked at me, or rather the sirens looked at me. For a long moment, the silence was so heavy, I could hear my own heartbeat. He was a giant, but he felt like a gentle one, just confused and noisy. A cat? You are small, and wearing a very fancy hat." "I'm small, but I'm clever," I replied, taking a step forward, "and my hat is made of high-quality felt. Now, let's talk about your problem. You're making too much noise and scaring the townsfolk. Why can't you talk about tea time without sounding like the end of the world?" Sirenhead sighed, a sound like a tire deflating. "I don't want to scare anyone. I am the community alert system of Silent Whispers. I was built to warn people about important things. Tea time, the mailman arriving, the weather forecast, and
And what happened? I can't speak properly anymore. My cables are all tangled, and when I try to talk, only this horrible noise comes out. I'm sorry. I just wanted to warn people about tomorrow's rain. Aha! I exclaimed, tapping my paw against my magnifying glass. A technical problem! Not a monster, just a broken loudspeaker. Detective Kitty loves technical problems. It's much easier to fix a cable than to fight a monster. I walked up to Sirenhead's base. He was made of metal and looked hastily assembled with parts from different eras. Wires and cables were everywhere, some hanging, some snapped. It was a wiring disaster.
Mr. Sirenhead, I said, looking up, I need to check your internal wires. Would you mind bending down a little? I'm a detective, not a mountain climber. Sirenhead leaned over, making a groaning metallic sound that sent shivers down my spine. The sirens loomed just a few meters above me. I could see cobwebs and small bird nests inside them. Poor Sirenhead, he really needed a good cleaning. I think I found the problem, I said, pointing to a thick red cable that was loose. It was as thick as my arm. This looks like the main one. Where was it supposed to be connected? I don't know, Sirenhead crackled. I only know that when it was connected, I could talk about tea time without making people think the world was ending. I miss being useful. I examined the cable. It had a connector that looked like a giant headphone jack. I looked around the base and found a hole that seemed to be the right spot, but it was covered in rust and grime. Professor Whiskertail, I shouted toward the car. I need pliers, some electrical tape, and most importantly, a giant cotton swab. Professor Whiskertail, who had been hiding behind the feline mobile, came running, holding a toolbox. He looked paler than usual, but the mention of a technical issue seemed to cheer him up. You're talking to him? He stammered. Yes, Professor. He's a noisy giant, but harmless. He just needs a little repair. With the professor's help, he held the ladder, which I naturally keep in my detective briefcase, along with the giant cotton swab. I climbed up to Sirenhead's base. It was delicate work. I had to wipe away the dust and cobwebs. Then, using the pliers, I reconnected the red cable. The plug slid in with a satisfying click. All done, I said, climbing down the ladder. Try speaking now, Mr. Sirenhead. Sirenhead was silent for a moment. Then, the sirens emitted a gentle chime, like a church bell. Test. 1, 2, 3. Tea time is at 4:30. Repeat, tea time is at 4:30. The voice was clear, calm, and very, very loud. Perfect, I exclaimed. Mystery solved. Sirenhead isn't a monster, he's a malfunctioning alert system. And now he's fixed. Sirenhead seemed relieved. Thank you, Detective Kitty. I feel useful again. What can I do to repay you? Well, Mr. Sirenhead, I said, adjusting my hat, I came here looking for a friend of mine, Mousetrap. He's a small mouse, wears a checkered coat, and has a twitchy mustache. Have you seen him? Sirenhead tilted his sirens, as if thinking, Mousetrap, Mousetrap. Ah, yes, I remember him. He was here a few days ago. He was investigating me. He said I was an audio phenomenon. And where is he now? I asked, worried tightening my detective heart. He went to the broken clock building. He said he was looking for a final clue. I tried to warn him that tea time was coming, but my cables were faulty. The broken clock building, I murmured. Professor Whiskertail, looks like we've got a new mystery, and this time we have a loud but helpful giant to assist us. With Sirenhead repaired, the town of Silent Whispers felt different. The silence still lingered, but now it was peaceful, not tense. Sirenhead, his voice clear and his purpose renewed, seemed happy. He even made a gentle sound that resembled a thank you, more of a friendly beep than a word. Detective Titty, I owe you one, he said, his voice echoing softly through the clearing. What can I do to repay you? I could issue mosquito warnings or reminders to water the plants. Well, Mr. Sirenhead, I said, adjusting my hat, I came here looking for a friend of mine, Mousetrap. He's a small mouse, wears a checkered coat, and has a twitchy mustache. Have you seen him? Sirenhead tilted his sirens thoughtfully. Mousetrap, Mousetrap. Ah, yes, I remember him. He was here a few days ago. He was investigating me. He seemed very interested in my wiring. And where is he now? I asked, worried tightening my detective heart. He went to the broken clock building. He said he was looking for a final clue. I tried to warn him that tea time was coming, but my cables were faulty. I'm sorry. The broken clock building was the tallest structure in town. A red brick tower with a frozen clock on top. Stuck at 3:15, the clock looked like a blind eye staring at the sky. Professor Whiskertail, I said, turning to my squirrel friend. Looks like we've got a new mystery. Let's head to the broken clock building. And you, Mr. Sirenhead,
could you give us a safety alert if something strange happens? Like, say, if you see raccoons with shovels. With pleasure, Detective Kitty. I'm the community alert system. It's my job, and I'll keep an eye out for raccoons. They're always troublemakers. We said goodbye to Sirenhead and headed for the broken clock building. Up close, the town looked even more mysterious. Toys were scattered across the streets, as if the children had been interrupted mid-play. A tricycle lay on its side, and a teddy bear sat on a bench, staring into nothing. "Look, Kitty," said Professor Whiskertail, pointing at a toy car in the middle of the road. "They didn't run away, they just stopped. They were in the middle of their lives." "Yes," I agreed. "They didn't run from Sirenhead, they ran because of Sirenhead. His noise was so loud and confusing that they thought it was the end of the world. They thought the monster was coming." We arrived at the broken clock building. The door was open, and the inside was dark and dusty. The smell of mold and old paper filled the air. "Mousetrap," I called. "It's Detective Kitty. Are you there?" The only response was the echo of my own voice, multiplying along the dark staircase. We climbed the stairs, which creaked with every step, as if complaining about our weight. The broken clock building had 3 floors. On the first, there was an office full of scattered papers. On the second, a library with open books, as if someone had stopped reading mid-sentence. On the third floor, there was a large room with windows overlooking the town, and in the center of the room was a chair turned over and a checkered hat. "Mousetrap's hat," squeaked Professor Whiskertail. "He was here, and he left his hat. That means he left in a hurry." I picked up the hat. It was warm, as if it had just been taken off. I looked around the room. There was a table with a map of the town and a small tape recorder. I grabbed the recorder and pressed play. The sound that came out wasn't Sirenhead. It was Mousetrap's voice, breathless and frightened. "Kitty, if you're hearing this, I found the final clue. Sirenhead isn't the problem. The problem is... The tape stopped with a click. "The problem is what?" I murmured, frustrated. I looked at the map on the table. A red circle had been drawn around a place I hadn't noticed before. "The Rusty Swings Park." "Professor Whiskertail," I said, putting Mousetrap's hat on my head. "It looks like Mousetrap went to the Rusty Swings Park, and he discovered something that isn't Sirenhead. Let's go, quickly." The Rusty Swings Park was the saddest place I had ever seen. It was a place meant for laughter and joy, but now it was covered in a layer of sorrow and abandonment. The swings hung still, their chains covered in rust, and the slide looked like a metal skeleton, its paint peeling away. "This place could use a renovation," I commented as Professor Whiskertail and I walked through the dirty sand. "And maybe some fresh paint?" "Kitty, look!" Professor Whiskertail pointed to the ground. There was a trail of cheese crumbs, tiny but visible. Swiss cheese crumbs. "Mousetrap!" I exclaimed. "He always leaves a trail of cheese crumbs when he's in trouble. It's his emergency code. He knows I'm a detective, but also a cat, and a cat follows a trail of cheese." We followed the trail, which led us behind a broken carousel. The carousel had wooden horses with empty eyes, and it felt like they were watching us. And there, hiding behind a bush, was Mousetrap. He was sitting, trembling but unharmed. He was holding a small metal object. "Mousetrap, you're safe," I said, running toward him. "Kitty, I knew you'd come," he squeaked in relief. "I found it. I found the real mystery. I almost got caught, but I used my mouse stealth mode." "What is it, Mousetrap? What's scarier than a giant with sirens for a head?" He held out the metal object. It was a small remote control with a single red button. The remote looked homemade, wires sticking out, duct tape holding it together. "This," he whispered, "this is what's scaring the town. It's not Sirenhead, it's the silence remote." "What?" "Sirenhead isn't a monster. He's an alert system. But he wasn't broken, he was being controlled." He pointed at the remote. "Someone was using this to turn Sirenhead on and off and to make him produce those horrible sounds. They wanted the town to believe a monster was coming, so everyone would run away." "But why?" I asked. "Because of this," Mousetrap said, pointing to the ground. I looked down. There was a small metal plate buried in the sand. I dug it out with my magnifying glass. It read, "Here lies the lost treasure of Silent Whispers Town." "The treasure!" exclaimed Professor Whiskertail. "They wanted the town empty so they could dig up the treasure without anyone noticing. It's an evil and very noisy plan." "Exactly," said Mousetrap. "They used Sirenhead as a sound smokescreen? They knew he was scary, so they used him to drive people away. But who would do something so terrible?" I asked. Suddenly, we heard a sound. It wasn't Sirenhead, but the sound of a shovel digging. We crept out of the park and saw them. In the middle of the town square, there were 2 raccoons wearing ski masks and digging a huge hole. They were the Raccoon Brothers, Rick and Rocky, known for petty thefts and disastrous schemes. They were more clumsy than evil, but still criminals. "The Raccoon Brothers!" I exclaimed. "They're the real villains, and they're using Sirenhead for evil? How dare they? They're the worst!" whispered Mousetrap. "They're always trying to steal my cheese." "Well, not this time," I said, adjusting my hat. "Detective Kitty is on the case, and this case is about to get loud." The showdown in the square was less of a battle than a mess.
The raccoon brothers, Rick and Rocky, were so busy digging that they didn't even notice us. They were sweaty and grumbling. The hole they were digging was big enough to fit a small car. "I told you the map was wrong, Zeka," Zek grumbled, tossing a shovel full of dirt. "There's no treasure here, just sand and worms. And I hate worms." "Shut up, Zeka," Zek replied, wiping the sweat from his forehead with his glove. "Rata-Rata-Wira said it was here, and he's a rat. He knows about treasures. He wouldn't lie to us." I approached, with Rata-Rata-Wira and Professor Petinias right behind me. "Excuse me, gentlemen. I'm Detective Kitty, and I have a few questions about illegal digging and the misuse of a community alert system." The raccoon brothers jumped, startled. They dropped their shovels and looked at us. They looked like two deflated balloons. "Detective Kitty? Zek, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be running from Sirenhead? He's a monster." "Sirenhead and I are friends now," I said with a smile. "And he told me you're the real troublemakers. And I have the proof." I showed them the remote control, the silence remote. "You were using Sirenhead to scare the town and steal the treasure. A very noisy and very sloppy plan." The raccoon brothers looked at each other. And then Zek tried to run, but Professor Petinias, with his squirrel-like agility, jumped onto his head and yanked off his ski mask. "Got him!" Professor Petinias shouted, holding the mask like a trophy. Zek tried to grab the shovel, but with a quick flick of my paw, I kicked it away. The shovel flew and landed in the hole with a pluff. "It's not worth it, Zek," I said. "The mystery's solved. Sirenhead is fixed, and the treasure is safe. And I have witnesses." Suddenly, Sirenhead appeared in the square. He was so tall that his shadow covered the entire plaza. He moved silently, quite a feat for a giant with sirens as a head. "Alert! Alert! The raccoon brothers are trying to steal the treasure. Repeating, the raccoon brothers are the villains. They are responsible for the noise." The raccoon brothers froze in fear. They hadn't expected the monster to be a community alert system, let alone one that could talk about them. No, Sirenhead, we're not villains. We just wanted a little gold." "The gold isn't yours," I said. "The treasure belongs to the town, and now you're going to give it back and fix the hole." The raccoon brothers, defeated and terrified by Sirenhead, confessed. They had found the treasure map and planned to use Sirenhead to scare the townspeople away. "But what is the treasure?" Professor Petinias asked. I looked at the metal plate. "Let's find out." We dug into the hole the raccoon brothers had started. And there at the bottom was an old, dusty wooden box. We opened it. Inside, there was no gold or jewels. There were toys, old toys, dolls, cars, and a storybook. "The town's treasure," I said, smiling. "It's not gold. It's the memory of the children, the history of the town." Rata-Rata-Wira picked up the storybook. "It's the town storybook. My grandmother used to read it to me."
"And now," I said, looking at the raccoon brothers, "you're going to help bring joy back to the town. And Sirenhead will make sure you do." With the raccoon brothers tied up, I used a string and left them for the nearby town's police, along with a note explaining the crime. And the town's treasure recovered. It was time to bring the city back to life. Sirenhead, now a hero, used his clear voice to broadcast a message to all the residents who had fled. "Attention, residents of Silent Whispers! This is a message from the Community Alert System. The monster was a mistake. The villains were the Raccoon Brothers. It is safe to return home. Repeating, it is safe to return home. And tea time is at 4:30. They came back, slowly at first. One car, then two. Soon the road was full of cars and families. Children ran to the square, and when they saw the toys from the treasure, they shouted with joy. The teddy bear found its owner, and the tricycle was ridden again. The town of Silent Whispers was no longer silent. It was full of laughter, chatter, and the gentle sound of Sirenhead announcing tea time. Rata-Rata-Wira, happy to have been rescued, thanked me. Professor Petinias was busy organizing the toys. I sat in my feline mobile, watching the town. "So, Detective Kitty," Professor Petinias said, approaching, "what's the lesson from this adventure?" I smiled, adjusting my hat. "The lesson, Professor, is that not everything that makes noise is a monster. Sometimes it's just an alert system with a loose wire. And the true treasure of a town isn't gold. It's the joy and the memories of its children. And raccoons are very, very noisy." The town of Silent Whispers was back to normal, or rather a new normal. Sirenhead, now a respected member of the community, continued to broadcast his alerts, but now they were helpful and kind. He announced the arrival of the school bus, cookie sales at the bakery, and of course, tea time. I said goodbye to Sirenhead, who thanked me again. "If you ever need a lunch alert, Detective Kitty, just call. And thank you for fixing me. I was so confused." "No problem, Mr. Sirenhead," I replied. "And remember, if you hear a strange sound, don't run. Stop, listen, and investigate. Because sometimes what sounds like a monster is just a friend who needs a little repair." Professor Petinius and I got back into the feline mobile. Crooked Post Road didn't look so scary anymore. The lampposts were still crooked, but now they looked like they were waving at us. "It was quite an adventure, Kitty," Professor Petinius said as we drove. "You saved the town, fixed a monster, and found a treasure. And I found a new hobby, raccoon hunting." "It's my job, Professor," I said, glancing at my reflection in the rearview mirror. "I'm Detective Kitty. I solve mysteries, no matter how noisy or scary they seem." And so the story of Sirenhead and the town of Silent Whispers came to an end. It was a story of horror, yes, but one that turned into a lesson about not judging a book by its cover or a giant by his sirens. And if you ever hear a strange sound in the woods, don't run. Stop, listen, and investigate. Because sometimes what sounds like a monster is just a friend who needs a little repair. The trip back was quieter, but no less thoughtful. Professor Petinius was busy jotting notes in his notebook, sketching diagrams of Sirenhead and the remote control. I, on the other hand, was driving and thinking about how fear can be loud and truth can be silent. "Professor," I said, breaking the silence, "did you notice how fear made people run away, but the real noise was just a cry for help?" "Yes, Kitty," he replied without looking up from his notebook. "Fear is an amplifier. It turns a hiss into a scream, and poor Sirenhead was just a giant loudspeaker with a loose wire." I smiled. Professor Petinius had a way of simplifying things, but the truth was more complex. The fear had been real, even if the threat wasn't. And a detective's job isn't just to solve mysteries, it's to calm fear. In the back seat, Rado Radawera was reading his diary, which he had recovered from the broken clock tower. He was reading out loud, and his words sounded like small whispers in the car. "Day 3. The sound is unbearable. It feels like Sirenhead is trying to tell me something, but the message is distorted. I feel like there's something behind the noise. I need to find the source." Day 4. I found the radio tower. Sirenhead is connected to it. He's not a monster. He's a machine. But who's controlling the machine? Day 5. I found the remote control. It's a simple but effective device. The Raccoon Brothers. They're using Sirenhead to steal the treasure. I have to warn Kitty. Rado Radawera's diary was proof that he was a brave detective, even if he was small. He didn't run, he investigated, and he discovered the truth.
The town's treasure, the toys and the storybook, was in the trunk of the feline mobile. I stopped the car and opened it. "Professor, Rado Radawera, take a look at this," I said. The toys were simple, but full of history. The storybook was worn, its pages yellowed with age. "This is the real treasure," I said. "Not gold, memory. It's what makes the town. And the Raccoon Brothers almost stole that." Professor Petinius picked up the storybook. "It's the story of the town. The children need this. They need to know where they came from." I thought about Sirenhead. He was a giant, but now he was a friend, proof that appearances can deceive. "Professor," I said, "I think Sirenhead will make a great alert system. He's tall, he's visible, and he's friendly." "Yes, Kitty," Professor Petinius agreed. "He's proof that technology can be used for good, even if it looks scary at first." We returned to the feline investigation office. Mr. Fluffy, my assistant, was asleep on the same pile of newspapers. "Mr. Fluffy," I said, petting his head, "we're back." And we solved the Sirenhead mystery. Mr. Fluffy opened one eye, purred, and went back to sleep. The next day, the newspaper headline was huge. "Detective Kitty saves the town of Silent Whispers from the noise." The story told of Sirenhead, the Raccoon Brothers, and the treasure. I smiled. My work was done. A week later, I got an unexpected visit. It was Sirenhead. He stood at my door, holding a bouquet of flowers and a cake. "Detective Kitty," he said, in his soft, echoing voice. "I came to thank you and to invite you to tea time." I smiled. "I'd love that, Mr. Sirenhead. I'd love that." Tea time was a success. Sirenhead was happy, the town was happy, and I was happy. The mystery was solved, and the lesson was learned. But a detective's work never truly ends. The next day, I received a letter. It was from a town called Silent Shadow. "Detective Kitty," the letter said, "we have a problem with a strange sound." I smiled. "Professor Petinius," I said, "prepare the feline mobile. We've got a new mystery."